Blessings, beloveds. Anastasia, Cosmic Astrologer. Let's talk about Chiron moving into the stationary direct position, which just happened today, and also Venus ingressing into Sagittarius, and what that could look like for all of us. So we've just had the solar eclipse. And don't forget, like I said, with solar eclipses, the energy builds up, could be 2 to 3 months before the eclipse and 2 to 3 months post the eclipse as well. So if that eclipse was hitting something off in your chart, particularly a personal planet, it's wise to not act hastily, over the next 2-3 months relative to what that eclipse is bringing up for you, in terms of what house location it's in and what planet it's aspecting, right? Because that particular cycle of eclipses, that Saros series, comes from a pretty challenging sort of family of eclipses, which can bring up some pretty difficult emotional content to deal with. And we know that when we are overreacting or reacting from an emotional space, we can make judgments and decisions that are not necessarily going to be fruitful, right? So it is good to think about that. Chiron going stationary direct. Okay, so Chiron went retrograde in July of this year, 2020. So it's been retrograde for the last 6 months, right? Just a couple of things before I bring up the chart. Chiron, as many of you are probably aware, is the bridge. That's why it's often referred to as the Rainbow Bridge. It's the bridge that takes us from Saturn, consensus reality, to the transpersonal planets Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. Those 3 outer transpersonal planets are not energies that are easy accessible in our conscious everyday functioning. They are pretty much unconscious energies. And when they come around, through transits or progressions or whatever it may be, they can wake us up, but they usually wake us up with some pretty shocking type of conditions, if you like, particularly if we are living a life where we are extremely conditioned through the world of Saturn. So Chiron, which acts as a bridge to those planets, it's not a coincidence that Chiron in the solar system happens to sit between Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. It's the body that literally is the bridge over. And that bridge is a way of understanding that, is to understand that in order for us to truly evolve, which we are evolving all the time. What I mean by truly evolve is to have to make a decision, if you like, a conscious decision relative to our own evolutionary path and what we need to do on that journey for ourselves. We cannot enter, if you like, the Uranus, Neptune, Pluto realms if we have not addressed the chironic wounds. Now, for some people, Chiron is more pronounced and more significant in their chart, whether it's natally and through transits. And for others, it's less pronounced. And my understanding of that from an evolutionary level is that, for example, if you have Chiron in an angular house in your birth chart natally, that's going to make it more pronounced. It's going to make Chiron's energy more pronounced in your frequency, in your field of experience, in your consciousness, in your unconscious components, in your wounds, the deepest pains and sufferings, and so forth. And in addition to that, if Chiron has some pretty strong aspects to it, as well as being angular, well, the amplification is going to be obviously stronger. And I'm pointing that out because, yes, everyone has Chiron in their chart, but not everyone experiences it as pronounced as somebody else. And that would be part of the reason. And to translate that relative to the evolutionary cycle of each soul, or the evolutionary journey rather, if we have been working on our chironic wounds and healing them, then in our evolutionary journey, we could just simply be at a point, a process where we have confronted the chironic issues and we have worked on them. We have done a lot of healing around them. So it doesn't come up as being so pronounced in a given life, for instance. It's just a thing to note, because not everyone's going to resonate with Chiron being such a strong journey or figure or narrative in their life, and that would be why. So if it's angular, if it has strong aspects, it's likely to speak quite strongly to the narrative of your life and to the things, the matters, the conditions, the wounds that need to be addressed. To, as I said, to get to Uranus, Neptune and Pluto, you've got to get through Chiron first. So it is fundamental to our growth and our evolution and what our soul is working on and evolving through at any given lifetime. If we don't address the Chiron wounds, it's much more difficult to access the realms of Uranus, Neptune and Pluto. Think about it. Uranus is the next body after Chiron, and when we address our chironic wounds, you could say that that brings forth a more authentic version of who we are and who we are becoming. Because not addressing our chironic wounds just simply means we repeat the story, the lessons, the difficulties, the pain and suffering. We just keep on repeating it in our own life and in those people that we have relationships with as well, until we understand what it is we need to address and heal, right? And the wounds come up, are activated very strongly, particularly in relationships, and also when Chiron is activated in your chart as well, or transiting Chiron is activating other things in your chart. So Chiron is in Aries. Chiron has a 49 to 51 year orbit around the sun. It's only at the early stages of Aries, so we've got a very long cycle ahead of us of Chiron being in Aries. Many of you who have Chiron in Aries natally are having a Chiron return. As I said, Chiron has been retrograde for the last 6 months. So any planet that goes retrograde takes us into the inner layers of our psychic structure, the unconscious realms, to work through, to sort through, to confront, to heal, to understand, to understand the journey of whatever that body represents. It's a reflective period. It's not necessarily a time of taking action and moving forward with something, but rather processing, digesting, absorbing and understanding. And with that, we must bring in compassion and love and empathy towards ourselves and towards others. The Chiron wounds are extremely deep. They are so deep that language does not and cannot describe the level of depth relative to the chironic wounds that a particular individual can be feeling, enduring, experience, learning from, and so forth. So now Chiron is stationary direct on the almost 5th degree, and I'm going to read the Sabian symbol for the 5th degree of Aries because it's quite beautiful. So a way of thinking about that is just to think about, well, the last 6 months, first of all, where is transiting Chiron in your chart? Where has it been transiting? Where is Aries in your chart? That's where it is. Are you having a Chiron return, approaching to a Chiron return? Are you having a Chiron first quarter square, last quarter square, opposition. You know, there's the whole cycle. That 49-year cycle is broken up into different phases. You know, the birth, the conjunction, first quarter square, opposition, last quarter square, and then back to its natal position, right? That applies to our own natal Chiron. So from the time we're born, you know, when we're 49, 50, 51, it varies because of the way it moves. It's got a very strange sort of elliptical kind of orbit thing happening, but everyone has a Chiron return in those ages, 49 to 51. So that cycle of first quarter square, opposition and so forth, I have spoken about that cycle very in a lot of detail, that breaks down that whole cycle. So I'd suggest you watch those videos if you haven't heard of that before or want to understand that more, because I'm not going to unpack that in this video. This is meant to be literally a 15-20 minute video. I doubt it I'll make it in 15 minutes. I never do, but I'll do my best. So what I'd like to encourage through this video, however, through my offering, through what I've been reflecting on the past couple of days relative to knowing that Chiron's about to go direct, is that what have you been working on within your own self relative to Chiron in Aries, which is primarily about your own identity. It's about the courage to be yourself. It's about expressing your desires, having the will, power, and courage to plunge into life. Because life is, it's like a mixed soup. There's so many different levels, there's so many different experiences. You know, we are going to go through many different waves, changes, shifts, and so forth. And as we're going through that soup journey, we are carrying with us our chironic wounds. And if we are totally out of touch with them, they usually get reflected back to us very strongly in relation to another, in some kind of relationship with another. Naturally, the house that it's transiting in, or the natal house it's in your birth chart, will give you further details on that. But basically, the last 6 months, we've been really cultivating on an inward level our own sense of identity, and which part of our identity, if you like, we've been healing. And if we bring in the polarity point, which is Libra, the opposite sign to Aries, why are we healing our identity? Primarily because we want to have a healthy sense of identity so that we can have healthier relationships. The more work we do on ourselves, the healthier our life is, and the better our relationships are, and our relationship to the world. Because everything, I've said this many times, it comes back to our own perception, what we project of most of it, which is unconscious. You know, I was listening to a meditation the other night, and this meditation teacher was saying that 95% of our behavior is driven through unconscious motivations. Now, I always knew it was about 80% or somewhere thereabouts. I've never heard it as being said to be 95. Now, who knows? How do you measure that? It's a hard thing to measure, really. But I think, from my understanding at least, through the reading and studying and life experiences I've had, it is fair to say that at least 80% of our behavior is driven from the unconscious components within us. Whether we believe that or not, whether we are aware of it or not, it is so. So the more work we do on ourselves, the healthier we can be with what we are projecting, what we are seeing, what we are perceiving. And so Chiron in Aries is a very strong activation point for this journey relative to our own identity. Chiron in Aries, it's healing our own personal wounds around our identity and who we think we are or who we are becoming. Or it can be bringing up matters of confidence, courage, the ability to initiate, the ability to stand up for yourself, to defend yourself, to protect yourself. Those are all issues that can come up with Chiron in Aries. And so circumstances and or relationships will mirror that back to you. You might meet somebody, you start a relationship with them, and they're very it's a very challenging relationship because they're very confronting. They challenge you all the time. It might come through a very negative way, or it might come through a more inspiring way. It just depends. It depends on who you're attracting, who you are, what you're drawing in, and so forth. But the challenge at the end of the day, at the core with Chiron in Aries, is to have the confidence to be yourself and to trust your instincts as well. So the last 6 months we've been processing on an inner level, which we're not really conscious of. Some parts we may be conscious of because we may be very aware of Chiron having been retrograde the last 6 months, and we've purposely been working on our own fragmented, traumatized, broken elements of who we are or who we are becoming, recognizing that, right? And so now that Chiron is going to proceed in a direct journey, what the next 6 months takes us through relative to Chiron, not looking at anything else, because in truth, when you are looking at your chart, you must integrate everything. When I say everything, I don't mean every single nitty-gritty detail of every single transit that's happening to your chart. That would just be a Gemini experience, and you would just have an overwhelming sense of information and data, but where does it fit? Where does it belong? What does it actually mean? And what does it mean for you, more importantly? And so again, the art of astrology is synthesis and understanding and knowing what you need to work with at any given moment. But my point is that when you're looking at this transit of Chiron, you would also need to be aware of other really prominent transits, especially by Saturn, Uranus, Neptune and Pluto, for instance. So whatever we have been personally processing in our own journey of healing the last 6 months, moving forward now in the next 6 months, it will become clear. It will start to become clear. It will start to unfold. It will start to rise into our consciousness so we can actually see what we have been working on, purely and simply. Now, let me just bring up the chart, and then I will go after this, so I might get it in 15-20 minutes. So this is a chart for 16th of December, which is today here in Australia. So this chart is drawn for Melbourne. Don't worry about the location of everything, as per usual. This is based on my current location. The location doesn't matter for what I'm discussing today. So you can see here, this is Venus. Let me get my little drawing tools. And how do I, oopsie. Okay, don't worry about that line there. But what I really wanted to do was just, I lost him. Hang on, guys. These fiddly things. Okay, so it's not going to let me do that. All right, I'm just going to do my best. So there's Venus. Okay. 0 degrees of Sag. And here is Chiron at 4 degrees and 54 minutes of Aries, stationary direct. You can see the S, that's the indication that Chiron's stationary, about to move direct in the next couple of days. And this is quite a beautiful energy, actually, which will be in play from now, from the 16th right through to, I think it's about the 20th of December, around there. So for the next 4 or 5 days, what we have is transiting Venus in Sagittarius, forming a trine to Chiron, right? So there it is there. That's actually a trine, okay? It's my attempt of showing a triangle. Trine aspect is the distance is 120 degrees from one point to the other point. And so it's fire to fire in this case, right? Because we have Venus in Sag, Chiron in Aries. Now, fire is a very powerful purifying force and energy. And fire gives us the courage to act, right? Fire is spirit, inspiration, spirit. We are inspiring. That's why we are alive and breathing. When we expire and expire our last breath, we expire, don't we? We expire from this body. We leave. We go into another level of consciousness. So in spirit is to draw in the spirit that enables us to feel alive all the time. So that's why fire signs and fire energy creates inspiration in people. You know, people who inspire you and you feed off their energy on that, from that level of fire and inspiration, corresponds to the fire signs, Aries, Leo, and Sag. And they're all, you know, different. All three archetypes are different, but they're all fire signs, and they all connect to inspiration in some kind of way, and courage and action and movement. So they're the main things, right? So this trine that we have from Venus to Chiron is really beautiful, because we're talking about Venus, the goddess of love, the planet of love. I'm just going to move that up there. So Venus trine Chiron, this can be a really beautiful opening for us relative to Chiron moving direct, and what we can bring forth through some sense of inspiration of Venus in Sag. Love, Venus, freedom, Sag, the ability to love more freely would be Venus in Sag. To feel inspired, you know, by what you've learned about yourself. And you can even trace this back to when Venus was retrograde earlier this year in June, which was the Gemini-Venus star point. It's taken 6 months for Venus to transit, you know, from Gemini right around to Sag, the opposition point. So some of this might even connect for you to what happened during the Venus retrograde cycle, because now Venus has moved right around and she's opposing the position she was in when she was retrograde. The opposition is always about illumination and clarity. So you can bring through some sense of awareness and clarity over what you've been developing and working on in a Venusian Venus way, which is about love and the heart. Yes, it's about values, relationships, money, even friendships. It's about art, creativity, you know, the sensual, aesthetic pleasures of life. It's many things on those levels, but fundamentally it's about the core central magnetism of love through your heart. And so this energy is pouring into the Chiron as Chiron is moving direct. So it's a beautiful omen or entry point to Chiron moving direct. Chiron is bringing in Venus's love through Sag, which is so inspirational and encouraging. It brings optimism, courage, faith, you know, the desire to wish to expand more relative to the things that you love, and having the, I suppose, the courage, Chiron in Aries, to pursue that further, or to start to pursue something by understanding who you are becoming as well. Chiron in Aries, your identity. So it's a beautiful omen, I feel, and I just want to read the Sabian symbol for 5 Aries because it's just gorgeous. The phase 5 Aries, we go to 5 Aries because in Sabian symbol work, whatever degree you're looking at, you go to the subsequent degree. That's the usual rule, right? A triangle with wings is the name of the phrase, and the keynote is called the capacity for self-transcending. So this is a symbol of the desire to reach a higher level of existence, a pure aspiration or devotion of bhakti. Now, bhakti is a practice in yoga traditions that equates to the heart. It's basically devotional chanting and singing that opens your whole heart chakra and heals your heart. I've done a lot of chanting through the years, and my personal journey and experience with chanting is that it's been ecstatic, it's been blissful, it's been deeply painful. The deeply painful component corresponds to certain things I was going through in my life that were so deep and so deeply painful that when I engaged in chanting, in chanting bhakti, devotional singing during that time, my heart was just breaking open. There was so many tears, so it was so intense. But I'm sharing that with you guys because I highly, highly, highly recommend at least trying the practice of bhakti through devotional singing and chanting, you know, finding a group somewhere or community or wherever it may be. You know, there's tons of them everywhere. You just need to look around a bit. But that process and experience is so healing for the heart. And so to me, I correspond that with Chiron, you know, because our wounds relative to Chiron are going to be described, the details, the context, the fabric, you know, the color, the texture, that the whole thing is going to be described by Chiron, the sign Chiron is in, the house Chiron is in, the aspects it has. But when you go straight to the core, the wound is deeply buried in the heart. So that's why bhakti, devotional practice, work, singing, etc., chanting, goes straight to those Chiron wounds, if you like. And so here we have Venus trine Chiron, opening the Venus, the planet of love, the goddess of love, opening that heart. Would have to do, Sagittarius would connect to the experience of chanting, for instance, you know, devotional singing. It's Sag, you know, and Pisces too. So let me just finish reading this Sabian symbol. So this is a symbol of desire to reach a higher level of existence, as I said before, a pure aspiration or devotion of bhakti. I've explained what bhakti means now. What has emerged in the first phase of the process of differentiation is becoming aware of the possibility of further up-reachings. The principle of levitation is seen as one of the two essential factors in evolution. The emergent being glorifies and defies it, but it is still only an ideal. At this stage, nevertheless, the whole being experiences a childlike longing for its eventual realization. That's such a beautiful Sabian symbol. What a beautifully divine Sabian symbol to have in reference to Chiron's stationary direct motion right now. This is the frequency that the 5th degree of Aries is carrying forward through Chiron. It's so beautiful. Reflect on that yourself, even meditate on that particular Sabian symbol. Because this direct movement of Chiron now, whatever you've resolved or healed or confronted or gone through some dark night of the soul kind of journey through it, again, I don't know why it's called dark night of the soul. It's never one night. It's months and sometimes years for some people. It just depends, right? But it's never one night, okay? But, I mean, I know somebody in my life at the moment, quite personally, who just recently had their Chiron return, and the magic, the transcendence, the pain that I've seen come out of this person through their words and what they've been able to share has been just mind-boggling. Really powerful stuff, but the individual is still going through the tending to the wounds that are just so incredibly deep. So never underestimate the Chironic journey, the Chironic wounds, and the healing that we must tend to in order to evolve, and to evolve into working with the vibration and consciousness of Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, the soul. So that's it. That's what I have for you today. Have a think about that. 30 minutes, that's not too bad. I said 15, I went 30. All good. See you guys soon. Much love, and thanks so much for watching. And again, Merry Christmas to those of you who celebrate. I will say Happy New Year, even though the true New Year is the 21st of March, when the sun is at 0 degrees of Aries. That's the true New Year. But as a consensus reality collective experience, we celebrate New Year at the end of December. So Happy New Year for that time, and I'll wish you again on the 21st of March. I hope you're all well and safe. Bye for now. Thanks for watching.